They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But let me tell you, when I served mine that Tuesday morning, it came with the roar of a diesel engine, the crunch of premium German metal, and the screams of an HOA president watching her pride and joy get demolished in real time. And honestly, I'd do it all over again. My name is Marcus Webb, and I've been a cattle rancher in rural Texas for 23 years. My grandfather bought this land back in 1952, a beautiful 70-acre spread, with rolling hills, ancient oak trees, and the best grazing pasture you've ever seen. This place has been in my family for 3 generations. Then, about 5 years ago, everything changed. A big-shot real estate developer decided to build Sunset Hills Premium Estates right next to my property. They marketed it as luxury country living. Mansions for rich city folks who wanted to pretend they lived in the countryside while enjoying their tennis courts and infinity pools. I didn't mind at first. Live and let live, right? But then, she moved in. Victoria Pennington Ashworth. Yes, that's her real name. With the hyphen and everything. She was a former reality TV star from some show about rich housewives in Dallas. She bought the biggest house in the development. A gaudy 7,000 square foot monstrosity that looked like a wedding cake had a baby with a Greek temple. Within 2 weeks of moving in, she got herself elected HOA president. And that's when my nightmare began. First, it was the complaints. My rooster was disturbing the peace at 5 a.m. Never mind that roosters have been crowing at dawn since the beginning of time. Then it was my cattle. Apparently, the sight of cows grazing was offensive to the aesthetic sensibilities of the neighborhood. She actually tried to get the county to force me to install privacy fencing to hide my livestock from her view. Every single complaint got rejected because my land wasn't part of their HOA. It was grandfathered in, protected by agricultural. She started parking her collection of luxury cars on the easement at the edge of my property. Technically legal, but always positioned to be as inconvenient as possible. She'd leave them there for days, blocking access roads I needed for my equipment. I'd tried being neighborly. I'd tried being patient. I'd even brought her a basket of fresh eggs and homemade jam as a peace offering once. She looked at it like I'd handed her a bag of manure and told her housekeeper to dispose of it. That was 3 years ago. Now, on this particular Tuesday morning in October, I walked out of my house at 6:30 a.m. to start my day. I had a livestock auction to get to by 9 a.m., which meant I needed to load 6 cattle into my trailer using my tractor and cattle chute system. But I couldn't, because there, parked directly in front of my barn doors, not the decorative barn doors, but my actual working barn where I kept my John Deere tractor and all my equipment, was a brand new Bentley Bentayga, Arctic White. Probably cost more than my entire yearly income. The vanity plate read V1CT ORY. My blood pressure spiked instantly. I pulled out my phone and called her. It went straight to voicemail. Victoria, this is Marcus. Your car is blocking my barn. I have cattle to load in 30 minutes. Move it. Now, I waited 5 minutes. No response. I called again. Voicemail again. I texted, your Bentley is on my property blocking my equipment. Move it in the next 10 minutes or I'm calling a tow truck. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, a response. Oh dear, is it? I had my driver park it there last night because we're having our driveway sealed today. It'll have to stay there until at least 5 p.m. I'm sure you understand. A vehicle of that caliber can't just be parked anywhere. Try not to scratch it. I read that message 3 times, feeling my jaw clench tighter each time. 5 p.m.? 5 p.m.? I looked at my watch. I had about 25 minutes before I called a towing company. Sorry, sir, the dispatcher said. We can't touch a vehicle like that without police authorization. Liability issues. You'll need to file a police report first. I called the non-emergency police line. We can send an officer out, but response time is running about 3 to 4 hours right now. Accident on Highway 71 has everyone tied up. 4 hours. I looked at the Bentley, then at my barn, then at my cattle trailer, already hitched to my truck but empty, then back at the Bentley. And something inside me just snapped. You know what the worst part about being pushed around is? It's not the big dramatic moments. It's the accumulation. It's 3 years of complaints, legal threats, condescending smiles, and passive-aggressive emojis. It's being made to feel like you're the problem for existing on land your family has owned for 70 years. I was done. I walked around to the side of the barn and jimmied open the old wooden door that we never used anymore. It was narrow, barely wide enough for a person, let alone a tractor. But there was another entrance on the far side of the barn, the one we used for hay deliveries. I squeezed through and climbed into my tractor. My John Deere 7230R is a beast. It weighs about 24,000 pounds, fully loaded. It has 230 horsepower. It can pull a house off its foundation if you hook it up right. I fired up the engine. The diesel rumble echoed through the barn like thunder. I had to be careful maneuvering through the tight space. I scraped both side mirrors against the doorframe. They snapped off like twigs. I'd fix them later. Right now, I had a more important mission. I brought the tractor around the exterior of the barn, and there it was, the Bentley gleaming in the morning sun like it owned the place. My phone rang. Victoria. I answered on speaker. Change your mind about moving it? What is that sound? Are you... Marcus, what are you doing? I asked you nicely. You refused. I'm solving the problem. Marcus! Marcus! I'm warning you. You had your warning, I said quietly, and I hung up. I positioned the bucket against the rear passenger door and gently, almost tenderly, began to push. The sound was magnificent. Metal shrieked, glass shattered. The car's alarm system went absolutely berserk, blaring like the end of the world. I kept pushing, steadily, inexorably, and the Bentley began to slide across the gravel. It left a trail of automotive carnage, pieces of trim, chunks of bumper, a side mirror that popped off and skittered away like a frightened animal. I pushed it 20 feet, then 30, then 40. By the time I stopped, the Bentley was completely clear of my barn doors and sitting in the middle of the dirt road that ran between our properties. The damage was extensive. The entire passenger side looked like it had been mauled by a mechanical monster. The doors were caved in. The windows were shattered. The wheel wells were crumpled. Something was leaking. Multiple somethings, actually. Oil. Coolant. Other expensive fluids I couldn't identify. I backed up the tractor and parked it, then calmly walked to my barn, opened the now unobstructed doors, and began the process of loading my cattle. The neighborhood had woken up. I could see people coming out of their houses, drawn by the still wailing car alarm. I could see Victoria sprinting down her driveway in a pink designer tracksuit, her face a mask of absolute horror. "My car!" she screamed. "My car! Oh my God! What have you done?" I didn't respond. I just kept working. She ran to the Bentley, sobbing, touching it like it was a dying relative. This is $300,000. You destroyed it. You had multiple opportunities to move it, I said calmly, guiding a heifer up the loading ramp. I gave you a warning. You ignored it. Your car was illegally parked on my property, blocking essential access to my livelihood. I removed the obstruction. I'm calling the police. Please do call the police, I said. I've got time-stamped photos of your car on my property, recordings of our phone conversation where I asked you to move it, and text messages where you refused and mocked me. I've also got 3 years of documented harassment from you. Should make for an interesting conversation. Her face went from red to purple. By the time the police arrived 20 minutes later, apparently a Bentley emergency gets faster response times, I had all 6 cattle loaded and was ready to leave. Sheriff Davis got out of his car with a sigh. He'd been out to my property before for Victoria's bogus complaints. "Marcus," he said wearily, "tell me you didn't do what it looks like you did." I showed him everything. The photos, the texts, the phone records, the property survey showing exactly where my land ended and the easement began, and where the Bentley had been parked, clearly on my side. He examined it all, then walked over to look at the Bentley. Victoria was still crying, surrounded by several neighbors who'd come to watch the drama unfold. Sheriff Davis took off his hat and scratched his head. "Ma'am, your vehicle was parked on private property without permission, blocking access that Mr. Webb needed for his business operations. He asked you to move it multiple times and you refused. He destroyed a $300,000 car. You refused to move it when asked," the sheriff repeated. That's trespassing. Now, the way he removed it might have been unorthodox, but technically, a property owner has the right to remove obstructions from their land. This is insane. You're saying he can just crush my car and that's legal? Sheriff Davis sighed. I'm saying this is a civil matter, ma'am. You'll need to work this out between yourselves or through your insurance and lawyers. From a criminal standpoint, you were trespassing. He removed the trespass. Could he have done it more delicately? Sure. But that's not a criminal issue, Victoria looked like. As I drove past the crowd, I caught glimpses of the neighbors' faces. Some looked shocked. Others looked amused. Old Mr. Chen was grinning ear to ear and gave me a subtle thumbs up. And Victoria? She was standing next to her destroyed Bentley, mascara running down her face, looking utterly defeated. I made it to the auction with 10 minutes to spare. That evening, when I got home, the Bentley was gone. Towed away on a flatbed, I assumed. But there was a letter taped to my door. It was from Victoria's lawyer, threatening to sue for damages, emotional distress, and about 15 other things. I called my own lawyer, old Bobby Patterson, who'd handled my family's legal affairs for 30 years. Marcus, he said, laughing so hard he could barely speak, I heard about this from 3 different people already. This is the best story I've heard all year. Don't worry about the lawsuit. She's got no case. Her car was illegally parked. You documented everything. At worst, it'll get thrown out. At best, you could countersue for harassment. 3 months later, Victoria's lawsuit was dismissed. Not only that, but her harassment campaign had generated enough documented evidence that my countersuit resulted in a restraining order. She wasn't allowed within 50 feet of my property line. She moved out of Sunset Hills 6 months after that. Rumor has it she sold the house at a loss and moved back to Dallas. The new owners? A lovely retired couple named the Johnsons, who raise chickens and actually appreciate having a working ranch next door. They've never once parked in front of my barn. And every time I drive my tractor, those missing side mirrors remind me of the day I finally stood up to a bully. Best $300,000 I never spent.